We have a packed program this morning, so please stay with us. We're going to be starting off with a really important topic, which is, I'm sorry, now the headphones are causing problems. You have to choose a channel, and the channel is the red channel. You do that by pressing a button, yeah? I see some red, so okay. I'm assuming that we're all learning people, we're technology people, and you're going to figure it out. Okay, I'm going to leave the headphones now. We're starting with a really important topic today, which is learning culture. I started as a trainer in the 1980s. In the 1980s, all you did was you stood in front of people and you taught. And that was it. There was no choice. Now we have lots of choice. We have e-learning content. We get content out to people. People can choose what they have. Fine. But we go beyond content now. We go beyond content, hopefully, to organizations which build a learning culture inside where people choose what they want to learn and they're enthusiastic about it, and the whole organization is. It sounds wonderful. How do you make it happen? I don't know. But fortunately, we have a speaker here who does know all the answers to this. Eileen Oliver Free from LinkedIn. I'm going to hand the stage over to her. Eileen, the floor's yours. Just give her a hand of applause. Eileen.
Bonjour. Can you hear me okay? Excellent, I love it. There is a seat at the front. If you'd like a seat, please come up to the front. We want to make sure that everybody can hear and feel involved. So, bonjour à tous et toutes. Je m'appelle Eileen Oliver Free et je suis Principal Talent Partner chez LinkedIn. I would love to give my entire presentation en français, but to save your ears, I'm going to do it in English. I did an exchange many years ago in Étrepagny, which is the south of France, when I was 16. It was very educational, it was very amusing, and I fell in love in France in many ways. But I'm definitely going to speak in English for your sake. So thank you for your understanding today. So, welcome to the session today. It's about the 6 must-haves in creating a successful learning culture. I have been a facilitator, a speaker, and a coach globally. I've lived in New Zealand for 18 years, and I returned to Ireland 2 years ago and joined LinkedIn. I'm very focused on designing and delivering global and bespoke talent and leadership programs. However, what we're going to talk to you about is how to create the culture. But before we dive into the content, I wanted to ask you a few questions. Now, I know that you're all passionate learning people, so I know when I ask you to put up your hand, you're going to be with me, yes? Yes, fantastic. All right. So I'm going to put some statements on the slide, and if you think it's true, raise your hand, and if you think it's false, I'll get you to raise your other hand. So let's start. Let's hope it works. Okay, so skill sets for jobs have changed by around 15% since 2015. By 2027, this is expected to grow by 20%. Do you think this is true? If you think it's true, hands up. Don't be shy, it's all good. If you think it's false. Okay, our survey says it's false. So skill sets have actually changed by 25% since 2015, and they're expected to double by 2027. So this is really insightful because it reinforces for us how skills are changing so rapidly. And of course, we're at the forefront of that. Okay, we're going to try another one. So, 52% of learning and development professionals agree that proactively building employee skills for tomorrow will help to navigate the future of work. Hands up if true. Hands up if false. You see, you're all not sure now, right? You're like, the last one was false. What will it be? It's false. Bravo. It's actually 88%. So it's huge. It's a whopping 88% of learning and development professionals. agree that proactively building employee skills for tomorrow will help to navigate the future of work. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're in the learning and development, you've probably always believed this, right? You've always thought that it's important to be building skills, but it's just interesting that that percentage is so high, and there's much more focus on it now as well. Okay, next question. 94% of employees say that they would stay at a company longer if it invested in their learning and development. Hands up if you think it's true. Hands up if you think it's false. Okay, well, this one is actually true. I wish I could say that you won a prize, but if you do come to our stand, at T72, you never know what might happen. But the great thing is that 94%, oh, look, LinkedIn are here with goodies already. You see, fantastic, woohoo! So what we want to make sure is, how do we do this? So 94% of us believe, I think really probably more than us believe, if we're in this profession, that you're going to stay somewhere that invests in you and in your professional development as well. However, to do this, there are the 6 must-haves that we believe that you need. Now, I know that for some of you, these will appear obvious, that you will say, oh, well, yeah, I kind of knew some of this, but hopefully some of it will give you food for thought as well. At the end of the session, I will ask you which one you think in particular will move the needle for your organization when creating a learning culture. So for some of you, you'll see straight away that you've already got a few, but you'll also perhaps pick one that you think will make a real difference as well. So let's dive in. Intentional internal mobility is the first one. I'd love to know how many of you have got internal mobility programs in place. Anybody? Great, yeah, wonderful, fantastic. I have been on one myself at the beginning of my career. I'll tell you a bit more about that in a moment. But particularly in relation to this, what we find is that obviously showing your employees that their hard work is rewarded by moving them within the organization allows them to grow, but also allows your organization to be able to retain staff as well. It's especially true of professionals who are just entering the workforce. Interesting enough, over 35% of new employees aged between 18, and 34 said that opportunities for career growth within the company was the main factor for them. So I'll just repeat that. For new employees aged between 18 and 34, they said the number one factor for them in choosing a company was internal mobility, the ability to grow and move within the organization. Now that contradicts some people's belief about they'll come, we'll train them, they'll leave. But actually, for a lot of people, if the culture is good and you invest in them, they do actually want to stay. Managers who are not willing to support internal moves, of course, they don't want to have open conversations. They don't want to promote career change or career growth within the company. And I'm sure you've all been part of that, where you're trying to get managers to feel invested in people's development so that you can keep them in the organization. But it does mean that a lot of the work that you find that you're doing in terms of internal mobility can be met with resistance. At LinkedIn, we run a program, we have done it for the last 2 years, and it's called Shadow In. Now, I've actually been part of the Shadow In program as well as seeing it in action, which is fantastic. And this is a program that runs over 3 months. Our CEO is involved, our managing directors are involved, and this is where you shadow a host. So the host may be somebody who they're definitely in a different department, but they may also be at least one level up as well. So you do that over 3 months. And of course, the intention is exposure. You get to know the other line of business, create connections, and to build skills. But it also potentially helps you in relation to actually moving throughout the company as well. So I did this myself when I wasn't very long at LinkedIn, and it was brilliant. Because I'm in learning development, or talent development as we call it at LinkedIn, I shadowed somebody who was in talent attraction. So not that far apart, but far enough apart for me to be able to see that there were things that they were working on, that we were working on. There were things that they could help us with, so there were common problems. But since then, I've actually worked with them on about 3 different projects. So for me, it wouldn't necessarily mean that I would want to work in that area, but I have an affinity and an understanding for that area. So internal mobility really helps to create a culture of continuous learning. And obviously people then have lots of different ways of learning, which we'll talk a little bit more later on as well. However, the biggest challenge we often hear about internal mobility programs is who actually owns it? Is it learning development? Is it talent acquisition? Is it talent attraction? Is it HR? But what we've seen is that actually, especially for companies that are a little bit smaller, a combination of both is really important. So, HR working with talent attraction, talent acquisition, and learning development together to ensure that the internal mobility program works. A good example of this is actually when I started off. I worked in hospitality in London. I did a 2-year management traineeship program in Forte Crest. I don't know if you remember Forte Crest. They're now called Le Méridien. And I started there and I worked in every single job, in every single department over 2 years. The wonderful thing about that was that if you wanted something done, you came and you asked me, because I knew who worked in housekeeping, I knew who worked in room service. But I also understood that if I asked them to do something, I knew what it meant. I had a real respect and an understanding of what I was asking them. And afterwards, I actually stayed with the company for an extra 1.5 years. And I can guarantee you, I would not have stayed with the company for that extra 1.5 years if I had not had such a good program over those 2 years. And at the end of it, they said to me, which department do you want to work in? You can have any job in any department. Because from their perspective, I had wonderful intellectual wisdom around the company as well. Now, a great example of this is with MGM. So MGM worked with their employees in relation to supporting them. They were frontline learners and they didn't work shift work. So they were not working 9 to 5. And so this was something where they provided an opportunity for them to grow and develop within the company as well. The next one then we'll move on to is career pathing. So as I said earlier, from LinkedIn data perspective, we know that skill sets have changed by around 25% since 2015. So this number is expected to double by 2027. Creating skills taxonomies for your organization will enable you to map what skills you have today and obviously what you need in the future. Now, the big thing that we notice is that people always pay much more attention to learning that is provided or recommended to them by their leaders. So this career pathing is really important. However, it can be very hard to do. And as Jane Oates, who's a president of Working Nation, said, every person in HR, L&D, etc., regardless of seniority, should be talking about career pathing in relation to career mobility within their organization. The thing is, it's hard to do, but the great news is that in particular in LinkedIn Learning, you do actually have the ability to provide individuals with the opportunity to set their own career goals. And then naturally the platform will architect or curate different programs that they can learn from as well. So this gives them a personalized learning journey as well as help them to achieve their goals. It's also something that recruiters can see on the platform so they can actually see what motivates or what goals people have when they're coming into the organization. For us at the moment at LinkedIn, we're in the process of doing what they call job architecture. So this is where we're going through every single job description and we're adding skills. So this is obviously quite a big job to say the least, but the combination of the skills in the job descriptions and then the skills on the platform as well really supports us in learning development and being able to support everyone's learning growth there. The third area is in relation to manager buy-in. Now, I'm sure you've all experienced how hard it can be if you do not have manager buy-in. Has anybody had resistance from managers in the past? I see some people going, oh yeah, absolutely. And so if you can get them on board, if you can get them involved, and if you can get them to showcase what they're learning, this makes a huge difference, obviously, to the employees as well. One of the key things that we do at LinkedIn is we talk from the very beginning. So literally, if you start at LinkedIn and you do introduction, we are already talking to you about your next play. Now, your next play is your next role. It does not have to be at LinkedIn. I found this very unusual when I first started, and it's the thing that a lot of people comment on, that actually, when we talk about next play, it's because we want you to be a better professional when you leave LinkedIn than when you joined. It doesn't mean that you have to always stay with us, We love to have rehires, but from the moment you come in, we're saying, how can we prepare you for your current role and for your next play, wherever that is? And so what that allows is lots of really robust conversation around career futures. We have lots of resources, we have Career Week, we have career action plans, and it's something that our managers are doing on a quarterly basis to make sure that that conversation is open and free-flowing. So just like you, to get manager buy-in, obviously it takes a lot of time and energy, effort, sometimes blood, sweat, and tears as well. But once you've got them, it makes a huge difference. And for us, we do a lot in relation to profiling or spotlighting our supportive managers. So obviously they're rewarded for advocating for learning and development as well. So it's really about trying to make sure that we get everybody involved. We also then have super learners. So we make sure that they're recognized. So 10% of our workforce, if they're obviously at the top level in terms of LinkedIn learning or attendance, etc., we don't just spotlight them. We also make sure that the senior leaders and the executive team actually mention it in their global comms as well. So it really is about trying to highlight and spotlight people for the work that they're doing. Of course, that links in beautifully into role modeling from executives. Now, if you can get your C-suite to endorse or to get involved or to sponsor a program, that also makes a huge difference as well. And you can certainly see that top workplaces that have a really strong learning culture have got that support from the C-suite down as well. Obviously, if they can role model, if they can get engaged, and of course, if there's videos or even if they're there in person, even better, makes a big difference. So one of our case studies is Foster & Partners. They engaged their executives as role models when creating their blueprint for a learning culture. Laji Diamandi explains how their HR director was an exemplar in terms of influencing people to be part of the program as well. It's an approach that worked particularly well. Now, what I was astounded about was that in relation to this particular organization, they engaged their executives and showcased them as role models within the first 8 months of providing them with the LinkedIn Learning platform. Because of that, they achieved 60,000 videos watched and more than 400 courses completed. So you can see that it's like anything. You have to get your early adopters in, you have to show that there's traction being made, and obviously give praise in relation to that as well. The next item we have is flexible learning opportunities. So this is the 5th must-have. And as the world of work is constantly changing, we're always thinking about flexible learning opportunities. Now, it's not just for our learners, but also for ourselves to stay engaged. We're always thinking what's going to work. It depends on the kind of organization you're in. It depends on the kind of work that people do. It depends on, obviously, the caliber of people that are working there in terms of whether you have highly educated, highly academic people, or whether you've got people who are new to the workforce. And so it's really looking at what are the power skills, what are the technical skills, etc., and how are they going to be able to access that. And so making sure that, in particular, 43% of Gen Z, which everybody's always very focused on, of course, they say they always want flexible learning opportunities. Personally, I'm not Gen Z, but I also like flexible learning opportunities. And so whether it's on your mobile device, whether it's on your laptop, whether you're screen sharing to your TV, or whether it's in-person collaboration, there's lots of different ways that we can do this. And of course, with LinkedIn Learning platform as well, you can connect all of your programs that you're running with the platform as well, which is really fantastic. So for me, I would tend to send something as pre-work, get them to watch in advance of a program, then we'd have it integrated as part of the program, and then I'd send them something else to watch afterwards. So really trying to connect before, during, and afterwards in relation to the learning. Obviously, in return, in terms of tools like LinkedIn Learning and other in-house self-paced resources, hopefully it's more accessible than ever to develop your skills. In particular, the Law Society was an organization who previously used core learning channels, such as hybrid workshops, on-demand learning materials stored on their intranet, and lunch and learn activities as well. However, they noticed a need to change their culture internally and enable employees to learn more flexibly. So they adopted LinkedIn Learning to provide their team members with more opportunities to learn at a time and a place that suited them. And moving to more flexible learning opportunities enabled the Law Society to increase learner engagement and change their mindset to one of continuous learning, which was paramount in an industry that associates time with money. The final point I want to talk about are social learning opportunities. Now, social learning can be defined as observing or imitating behaviors of others. In a hybrid environment, the opportunity for social learning needs to be far more intentional. So this could be workshopping ideas. This could be showing somebody how to do something physically in front of them. It can be setting a project, learning as a group. And some of our diversity, inclusion, and belonging programs are self-paced, as well as community-led from each other. So not just formal learning context, content experiences and perspectives of others are also factored in as well. What's really interesting, though, is this statistic that employees who feel this sense of belonging are 5.2 more times likely to be engaged at work. So if you have social learning, you feel more engaged. Well, of course you do, because you're engaging with other people. You're learning from other people. It's not just coming from you as the L&D professional. And I know it can be hard when you're the person who's designing and delivering programs. You often think it has to be you. But actually, I just had this experience last week where I delivered a workshop deliberately architected so I could speak as little as possible. And they could have great fun connecting with one another. And it was one of the most successful because, of course, it was the wisdom of the crowd. They had the knowledge. It was just giving them the opportunity to bring it out in that social learning space as well. So as fellow L&D professionals, you'll be more than aware that it takes a lot more than simply offering learning opportunities to get employees to make the most of them. You need employees to pursue learning because they want to, not because they have an obligation to. So that's why it's essential for employees to be motivated to sharpen their current skills and also be thinking about where they're going in the future, because this will help you as a learning development professional, it will help retention, and it will also help your organization's brand as well. So that's where having a robust learning culture at your organization comes in. And implementing the 6 must-haves that we talk about here will enable you to set up for success. So I said at the beginning that I would ask you at the end which one you thought was going to be the most important for you and your organization to move the needle in terms of creating a successful learning culture. So I'll go through each one and you can just raise your hand and so that'll give me an indication. If we look at the first one, intentional internal mobility, who thinks this is the one that their company really needs to focus on? Okay, we've got a few, excellent. My heart goes out to you. It's a wonderful initiative, and I do understand how challenging it can be to do the lift, but it's definitely worth it. The second one, active career pathing. So this is where you specifically design learning paths. Love it, great, more hands, fantastic, great. Manager buy-in. Would this make a big difference in your organization? Great. What about role modeling from executives, from your C-suite? Yeah, we see some definite ones going up there. Flexible learning opportunities. Great. And social learning opportunities. Love it. All right. Well, it's clear there's no one particular winner. And that might be because, of course, all of them are really important in terms of creating that culture. However, if you do want to dive into a little bit more in terms of the data that we went through today, and obviously to talk to our team as well in terms of tools that we have, and there's lots of different sessions that will support what I talked about here as well, do check out our stand on T72. I will be there as well myself for the next 45 minutes. So if you do have any questions, you're very welcome to come and have a chat with me. I'm not scary, I promise. It's only my husband who thinks I'm really scary, but other than that, I'm lovely. So merci beaucoup pour votre attention. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
You have time for one.